Stuart Isaac disappearance. Stuart Isaac disappeared in Yellowstone National Park on September 24, 2010. Stuart Isaac was a 48-year-old family man, native of the Republic of Palau in the Pacific. On September 6, 2010, he set out to enjoy a cross-country trip to Yellowstone National Park. He drove approximately 32 hours from his Burtonsville, Maryland home and began his solo camping trip. The last contact he made with his family was a simple note that he left, informing them of his planned trip. Isaac spent several weeks away from home, and it was not until September 24th that he was determined to be missing. We know that, on September 26th, Isaac's black 2009 Lexus was parked at Craig Pass without a single hiking trail nearby. His car was found by the National Park Service during a routine patrol of the area. The car, which sported a vanity license plate reading Belloc, was unlocked with the keys inside it. Whether Isaac had been the one to park the car here, or if he was even in the vehicle at this time, is entirely unknown. Craig Pass, where the vehicle was located, is a rather odd place for any car to be parked. Standing at an awe-inspiring elevation of 8,262 feet, it serves as a mountain pass on the Continental Divide. Located roughly 8 miles east of the Old Faithful Geyser, it is rather far from any moderately trafficked route on the Yellowstone National Park's Grand Loop Road. This unusual finding is what prompted local authorities to determine that Isaac was indeed missing. Upon finding Isaac's vehicle, a large-scale search ensued immediately. Authorities determined that Isaac could have been lost for a total of 20 days when the car was finally located, considering that no spotting of him had been reported since September 6th. The National Park Service enlisted the surrounding sheriff's departments and the California Air National Guard to assist in the search. Together, along with rescue dogs, volunteers, and helicopters, they combed through the nearby areas to find any evidence of Isaac. Not a sign was found. The last reported contact by Isaac was to a former high school classmate, Matsu Evans. Records show that Evans spoke with Stuart for 2 hours on September 24th, almost immediately before his disappearance. This only added mystery and confusion to the investigation. The call was made at 6:30 p.m., according to her time zone in Guam, but this would have been roughly 3:30 a.m. in Isaac's time zone. Evans remarked that during their phone call, she felt something was off. When being interviewed by investigators, she said of the call, "I was kind of surprised to hear from him because he seldom made calls. We text each other and we email. Now I know that he's missing. Why would he call me 2 days before something happened?" However, during the call, he did not allude to being in any serious distress and simply informed her that he was on his way to Yellowstone for a relaxing cross-country trip. What made the encounter even more curious to Evans was that she never knew Isaac to be an outdoorsman of any sort. He did not seem to be experienced in hiking or even to be an occasional purveyor of nature trails. Due to the unique circumstances of Isaac's disappearance, many have speculated that he had planned to disappear on the trip. The mysterious final phone call to a loved one and a note left for his family aligns with the typical procedures for someone contemplating to end their life. Let's hope he is found one day. The disappearance of Margaret Ellen Fox. Whilst some people tucked out of sight are indeed fugitives, the next case is more likely to pull at your heartstrings as we look into the disappearance of Margaret Ellen Fox, a young girl who was last seen when she was just 14. It was 1974 in Burlington, New Jersey, when Margaret disappeared. Like many young teen girls, she was on her way to a babysitting job, though unfortunately for Margaret, things took an unexpected turn for the worst. The young girl was on her way to meet a man who had named himself as John Marshall. Margaret had placed an ad for her babysitting services, which is how she had met the so-called John Marshall. Marshall had said he needed a babysitter for the coming weekend, but had delayed or otherwise cancelled several initial meetings with her. When she eventually had plans to meet with the man, he had said that he would meet her in a red Volkswagen in Mount Holly. Young Miss Fox walked beside her sister to the bus stop to make her way to Mount Holly. Her sister watched her get onto the bus, and witnesses have reported having seen her near the high streets once she reached Mount Holly, though she has not been seen since these few sightings. Did she even make it to the alleged John Marshall? We do know that not long after Margaret had been reported to be missing, the police had begun to track and record all calls both in and out of the family home in order to keep tabs on any new leads or necessary information. It was a good job they did, as the family did receive a ransom call demanding $10,000 for Margaret's safe return. The call went as follows: "10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping." It was Margaret's mother who was on the other end of this harrowing phone call. Years later, we still don't know who made this call. It's assumed that the unknown caller and the abductor is one of the same, though they had no clues as to who this may be. The investigation surrounding this disappearance only continued to raise further questions. The number Marshall had given to Margaret turned out to belong to a Lumberton supermarket. This, of course, immediately raised suspicion amongst the authorities. After this, several other parents came forward saying their young teen daughters had had men trying to lure them with false job offers. To this day, the identity of John Marshall remains a mystery. With no further leads and years of efforts, the FBI and Burlington City Police Department have shifted their approach. Despite the lack of arrests, the department has not given up all hope. You can find the recording of the ransom call on the FBI website, uploaded in the hope that someone will recognize the voice of the abductor. The disappearance of Maurice Gordon Doc Dametz. Maurice Gordon Doc Dametz was an 84-year-old Christian reverend of whom had a relatively successful writing career during his time working as a Christian leader of his small community, with a number of successful publications under his belt, such as his works titled Focal Points of Christian History, Trouble Transformed, Burden Bearing, Mystery of Godliness, and Dead at the Top. Unfortunately, Dr. Metz was suffering from a severe blood disorder that made it difficult for him to be alone and had severe arthritis complications that prevented him from being able to move without assistance. Despite these physical limitations, Dr. Metz enjoyed spending his free time venturing out into the wilderness to locate ideal locations for mining precious gems and minerals. Metz had been a fan of leading his own private expeditions in the field of geology and would often invite a close friend of his to accompany him when making trips out into the national parks or empty stretches of wilderness to assist him during the trip and help him move throughout different pieces of rugged terrain. Doc's fascination for the field of geology would eventually lead him to joining the American Federation of Mineral Societies and Flatiron Gem and Mineral Club, becoming an experienced veteran of private expeditions and mining efforts. It is for all these reasons that it came as a shock to the wife of Dr. Metz when Doc disappeared suddenly and unexpectedly when venturing out into the Pike National Forest located in the Front Range of Colorado, when taking a trip with his close friend McSherry to find a digging spot for minerals. According to McSherry, the two had found a small sandy pit close to the Rampart Range Road, where McSherry said he had left Metz to venture out an extra 50 yards to find his own sandy pit to dig from. After about 2 hours of mining, McSherry returned to Dr. Metz and told him they would be driving home soon because it would be getting dark. Doc had said that he would be gathering his tools while McSherry returned to his pit to pack up his things. After McSherry finished packing his things, he returned to Dr. Metz's pit, only to find that he had completely disappeared without a trace. When investigations were made, detectives remarked that the disappearance of Dr. Metz seemed perplexing, as there was no evidence of a struggle or any footsteps, markings or tracks left behind in any direction. Additionally, all of Dr. Metz's tools went missing with him, with nothing left in the pit to be used as evidence. On the 18th of July 1981, the wife of Maurice Gordon Dr. Metz wrote a letter to her governor, Governor Richard Lamb, asking for any assistance in helping her find her husband. The letter detailed that she believed some form of conspiracy had been committed against her husband, with thoughts that he had met some form of foul play or had been carried away, but that all efforts for an investigation were being impeded by unseen forces. Despite this letter, no further action was taken, with Dr. Metz declared dead in 1990. The disappearance of Olivia Samantha Fowler. For some people, a staggered or unpredictable home life can make witnesses more difficult to find or sometimes less reliable. In the case of Olivia Samantha Fowler, some of her circumstances made her disappearance harder to notice. The 26-year-old woman was last seen on August 13th in 2021 in Meriwether County, Georgia. What was perhaps working against her case the most was her living situation. Olivia did not have any stable housing at the time of her disappearance, instead splitting her time between her mother's Manchester house and her father's in Woodbury. The journey between these two homes was just 15 minutes. Meanwhile, her 3 children lived with her cousin. Between the different houses and her boyfriend's home, she had ties across multiple counties: Meriwether, Harris, Talbot, and Upson, making tracking her down all the more difficult. It was the morning of August 12th, a day before her last sighting, that her sister had interacted with Olivia in their mother's home. Her sister did not report any alarm bells or unusual behavior within these conversations. Later that day, Olivia arrived at her boyfriend's house, located just outside of Manchester. As he went to bed for the evening, she left to have a cigarette on the porch before leaving his place at around 2 a.m. He had said she was gone when he woke in the morning, and some locals reported having seen her around 7:30 a.m. The last sighting that we have of Olivia was then at 10:30 on the morning of the 13th, according to a Georgia Department of Natural Resources ranger. It was then on the 14th of August 2021 that her family placed a missing person report, though it would take until the May of 2022 for the FBI to become involved in the case. Her family say that it is out of character for her to leave without a purse, phone, or keys, but believe she may have been heading to the Cove, a place along the Flint River. After dozens of leads, we still have no idea what might have happened to this young woman. Her unsolved case still has plenty of missing details. Hopefully, if more of these are uncovered, it could lead to her safe return. The disappearance of Jeremy Bright. On August 14, 1986, 14-year-old Jeremy Bright attended the Coos County Fair in Myrtle Point, Oregon, with his 10-year-old sister. At 2 p.m., Bright and his sister decided to split up to explore the fair on their own, with a plan to meet back together near the Ferris wheel at 5 p.m. Jeremy never showed. Jeremy Bright's stepfather and sister waited for his mother to arrive home the next day before contacting authorities. In his room, his mother found his wallet, watch, and key to their family apartment, but found no other clues as to where he could have gone. On August 15th, his mother filed a missing persons report with local police. Police opened an investigation suspecting foul play in the boy's disappearance. But a few days later, on August 23rd, they announced they no longer suspected foul play because of several reported sightings of the boy. Instead, they announced that Jeremy Bright was now thought to have run away with the travelling carnival. However, this was not the end of the case, as new and strange rumours of Bright's disappearance began to arise. One of these rumours came from people who said that Jeremy Bright was seen at a party where he ingested beer laced with an illegal drug that caused a fatal overdose. Some people believed this theory since it was known that 14-year-old Jeremy had a heart murmur, which could lead to a high possibility of overdose. But the question unanswered was, if Jeremy did die while at this party, where was his body? No one had an answer. Another rumour was submitted as an anonymous tip from a prison inmate. The inmate said that Bright was accidentally shot by a group of criminals while he was swimming with friends in a local swimming hole. The people responsible allegedly attempted to resuscitate Bright in a remote cabin, but his wound was too severe and the boy died while in the cabin. The inmate claimed that the boy was buried in a shallow grave around the cabin and provided authorities with the location. However, after searching the property, police found no sign of Jeremy Bright or his remains. On another occasion, police began searching every well in Myrtle Point after someone submitted an anonymous tip saying that Jeremy Bright's body could be found at the bottom of one of the wells. Again, police came up empty-handed with no sign of the 14-year-old boy. Investigators then received a tip that told them there was a young man named Jeremy Bright who was working for a circus company in Florida. Florida was known to be a state where many traveling carnivals moved to during the wintertime. This meant it was possible that Bright could have ended up in Florida if he had ran away with the traveling carnival, as authorities had initially speculated. When investigators made it down to Florida, they found Jeremy Bright. However, this was another Jeremy Bright, who was older and originally from Colorado. The last lead authorities had for Jeremy Bright's disappearance was Terry Lee Steinhoff, who had babysat Bright at one point. Steinhoff was charged with the murder of a 32-year-old woman who he had stabbed to death. Before he was charged, there were some reports of people seeing Jeremy Bright in the passenger seat of Steinhoff's truck. Nonetheless, Steinhoff never admitted to having anything to do with Jeremy Bright's disappearance. Unfortunately, all the leads police followed ran cold, and Jeremy Bright was never seen again. But what do you make of these mysteries and disappearances? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.